Welcome one, welcome all to episode 164 of the Xbox Expansion Pass, recorded on Saturday, February 11th, 2023. I am your host, Luke Lohr, the InsipidGhost, joined by my co-host, the intrepid Captain Logan. And in this episode, we'll take a look at the impressive release of Hogwarts Legacy. We'll find out just what's going on with Atomic Heart, and Jedi Survivor marketing has now begun. As always, we hope you enjoy. Logan, as always, we like to start the show by offering words of kindness to those who have made our gaming weeks better. But first, my friend, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. What a crazy week of gaming it has been. Like, we got a ton of news for all kinds of stuff, and I'm ready to get into it. I'm ready to talk about everything. Let's talk about everything.
I'm right with you. Crazy week of news. It's like that's been happening pretty regularly lately. Before we get to our shoutouts and such, I just want to note, did you see Nintendo straight up copied the Xbox Direct formula?
Oh yeah, really, really smart of them. I think they might go someplace one day with that kind of approach. You know, I think they probably could have gotten the actual devs to come out of their cages to talk about the game. But, it's baby steps. Baby steps.
Nintendo, you'll get there, I guess, with these directs.
Maybe another 100 years.
Yeah, maybe these directs and just like I don't even know why they think we wouldn't notice that they straight up copied the formula. And then they shadow drop something like, come on.
I know, right?
Crazy talk.
It's almost like they've been sitting on games waiting for Xbox to make their move so they can try and go one up. Yeah,
Well, that's actually how long-term business works, man. That's what they do. You just sit on stuff to not make money, and then you're like, oh, my opponent did something. Let's make money. It's crazy.
Yeah. Next thing you know, they'll just watch. How much you want to bet? In a couple of weeks or so, Sony will try and do the same exact thing.
Yep. You're probably within 4 weeks, they're going to have some sort of direct or state of gaming, state of play, maybe. I don't know, whatever they call it.
State of play or state of applause. Who knows?
Yeah, it's crazy talk. But yeah, great week of news. Excited to talk about it. We must first. There it is. That's what I wanted. We must first, of course, give shout outs to those who have made our gaming weeks better. And Logan, this week, I want to shout out two fantastic gentlemen, content creators, Pong Soul and Fun Speculation. Great dudes. I jumped into the chat over the Xbox Ultimate podcast. It was great to just listen to them talk shop. Sometimes, I don't know if you have this problem, sometimes as content creators, we get so focused on our own stuff, we forget or we don't have time, rather, to go into live chats or whatnot and just go visit other people. And so it was cool to just go in and listen to them talk. But Pong Soul and Fung Speculation. If you know those guys and gents over in the Twitterverse and such, please let them know I gave them some love, because they're like me. They're doing 1,000 things. They may not get to track every little thing. So give them some love if you haven't already. Logan, who is your gaming shout out this week? Who's made your gaming week better?
Well, I have a couple folks. First, I want to thank Kevin the Muffin Mon over, and mostly just because over on their Xbox show, I usually drop in and start to chat with them. I actually try to get into as many of the Xbox podcasts that live stream when I can, but I'm usually at work. But always willing to take in the chat when they're doing their show, and I love that they draw attention to how other people are feeling about the topics that they're going on. And also, I want to thank my wife, who will never listen to this, but she was kind enough. She knew what I wanted to play this week, and she let me have full access to the TV that's got the system hooked up to it. So I got to play all the gaming I want this week, and I got a ton of hours in, which is like a part-time job at this point. But I wanted to thank her for just being the awesome wife that she is.
Dude, straight up, I know exactly what you mean. They'll never listen, but it feels good to give them that love, you know? Yeah. No, that's really cool, man. I think you're alluding, of course, to Hogwarts Legacy, and I'm stoked to hear your thoughts on it. Stoked to hear your thoughts on it. I've really enjoyed seeing a lot of the gameplay and stuff, so that's going to be a fun topic for sure. But before we do, good sir, my new favorite segment of our show, the Patreon Shoutouts. Remember, guys, you can follow us over on patreon.com/Xbox Expansion Pass. Throw us some support there. With the first month, I was actually able to get a keyboard and mouse. I got them on clearance, Logan. I got the Razer Halo Infinite ones.
No way. Oh,
Yep.
so tempted. Oh.
Yeah, they were on clearance, so like that was definitely something I wasn't planning on.
Yeah.
But right now I'm kind of using Patreon funds to push towards a new computer, so we can do better video stuff, which is dope. So, but yeah, let's do these shout outs, man. Let's do these shout outs. Tier 2 and 3 over on patreon.com/Xbox Expansion Pass. We begin with Matt Without Fear, the Lord James Suddy. We've activated him. Brendan Myers, the Winter Gamer. Sony's VP of Marketing, Kevin Butler. Clint Combs, DJ Hero. And Logan, if you would, we've got a new Patreon member that deserves a shout out this week. Give him some love.
Welcome, Dano12.
Dano is the man. So cool to see his name pop up on there. And I even did like this like thing on Twitter where I put his like Twitter face, like his Twitter handle picture, like scrolled it in there with an animation. I don't know. I was having fun. It was just shooting it. But yeah, man, thanks to those guys. They are amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic, folks. Thank you all so much for the support too. It is really helping Luke in ways he will be able to get the hair implants that he wants in the near future. We're going to get there.
Everybody thinks I'm going bald because I have thin hair. I'm not going bald. My hairline has not receded. Hair is not going any thinner. Has it really? Is that why the hat's there? Is that what's going on?
I love this hat. It's like one of my favorite hats, but it's one of those things where I just like, I'm fine being bald. I don't wear a hat all the time, but there's times where I don't shave my head. So it looks like I'm like some sort of weird mole rat thing with the short stubbly hair everywhere. So yeah, I know, right? But okay, I'll take off.
Oh, here we are. Video list. Oh wow, I thought you were pure bald.
No. I have a lot of growth. It's just the top. I got the monk patch. So it's just one of those weird things where I just haven't gotten around to actually like shaving my head. So
you're a young Jean-Luc Picard, sir.
Right? Oh man, what a compliment that is. Damn.
What a suave individual. I'm excited for Picard season 3. I'm just saying.
I don't want to do Paramount Plus because I hate the app, but I really do want to watch it's terrible.
But you don't want to watch Halo again?
Well, it being the premier video game TV show that follows canon so well, how could I not? No, I watched that show once and I was absolutely done with it.
Yep.
I do want to watch Picard though. It makes me sad.
I agree.
Weird tangent. We went off.
Hey man, here we are. This is what's going on. I'm enjoying it. All right. Well, let's begin with our first topic. Harry Potter, Hogwarts Legacy is out. It is out to rave reviews, I might add. PlayStation Universe and Lifestyle and Game Rant all 9.5, 9, 9 at Press Start, 9 at Xbox Era, 9 at IGN, 8 at Dexerto, 8 at Push Square, VGC gave it an 8, 6 Axis gave it a 7, PC Games 7, Games Radar 3.5 out of 5. This ended with an 86 Metacritic at the time that I pulled this and an 86 on OpenCritic as well. Turns out this here Wizard game, my friend, pretty darn popular, even breaking some records over on concurrent players of Steam. Pretty wild, man. You got your hands on this one, yeah?
Yeah. So I pre-ordered it on PlayStation 5. I wanted to get the extra exclusive content that they did because they got the marketing deal for it. So they wanted to take on that beast of a thing. And I've actually been really loving it. To give a little bit of context, I was not a Harry Potter fan at first when the books came out. I got into the books about when the fourth one came out. And after that, it was about the time that the movie started coming out, I think, actually. So it might have been even later into the book series, but I've watched all the movies. I grew to really love that franchise and those characters. I think Snape is one of my favorite characters in ever. And I've got tattoos of Hogwarts. I've went to the Universal Studio stuff. So my opinion, take it with a grain of salt because I am very biased to this world. I got my wife into it. She's absolutely loves the franchise because of this. We've had numerous trips to Hogwarts over at Universal Studios Florida. So when I saw this game, I thought, I know that there is a lot of controversy around it, and I respected the people who have decided that they don't want to support J.K. Rowling, and I 100% agree with the reasons for it. I don't think that there's any doubt as to why people would want to boycott this or not give her money. But I'm separating myself and making a choice that falls in line with what I believe and how I will decide to move forward in other situations as well too. And where I spend my money and how I can support those that deserve it, even if I have to give money to someone else that I don't necessarily want to. Mm-hmm. So to look at Hogwarts Legacy as a game, I think Hogwarts Legacy as a game has done what I think everyone expected after Breath of the Wild came out, which we knew it would kind of take a few years for people to kind of start learning about the design language of what made Breath of the Wild interesting. And I forgive me if I'm going to be comparing this, but what Hogwarts Legacy does is it takes the idea of the film and it copies the pacing of that. So when you're playing through the story, you're kind of kicked off at the start and you're told you are special. You are able to do things that not many people are ever able to do. And you decide, and you're being carted off to Hogwarts to go learn. And it does a really good job of ramping up the story right from the get-go. Like something dramatic happens before you even get to the castle, and you're just like, "Oh my god, this they're serious about this. They're really gonna take this game seriously." And then you get to the school, and then the school is like, "All right, you're in school. You need to go to classes." And then as you're going to classes, you start meeting other students, and then you start forming relationships, and then those relationships take you to places that will then uncover more news or more information about that exciting thing that happened to you before school that you haven't been able to talk to anyone about because it's all got kept very hush hush. Mm-hmm. So then you go back to Professor Fig, who's kind of with you from the start, teaching you how to be a wizard and stuff, and tell him all the stuff that you found out about. And then it kind of kicks off the rest of the main narrative and stuff. All the meanwhile, you're getting into the little weird hijinks and stuff that happen. Same thing with the films. So they've done a fantastic job. And I don't know why people who are looking at this are saying that the story is weird or it doesn't know where to go or it keeps pushing you in different directions. Because from my perspective, I see exactly what happens. Harry and the kids get in trouble. They have to go to classes. They find out something as they're kind of working things out. They go back and get into more trouble. And it just slowly kind of does that loop till you get to the end of the film. With the game as a whole, I will say that the music is not spot on John Williams. I don't think they wanted to do that. I think they wanted to kind of respect and keep John Williams' music separate. There are definitely little sections that sound exactly like what John Williams has created, but they've kept the tone and the theme very close. So everything has little hints that remind you of what John Williams has written, but it is not exactly that. The combat is fantastic. I think the spells that they give you feel fluid. They feel like stuff that you would normally do in just about any action RPG. You know, you've got blocks, you've got parries, you've got heavy attacks, and you've got light attacks. And you combine those in a way that really feels natural. And the canon has always supported all of the spells that you have. So when you do a spell, you know the spell from the books, from the movies. And one of the interesting things about this being an open world game is that Luke, you've played through games where you've had to go stealth, right?
Sure, absolutely.
So usually when stealth happens, stealth is like, now I'm crouched. Mm-hmm. And there's usually tall grass that you have to wander through.
Or something you have to hide to it, yeah.
Yeah, stuff that you have to hide behind. In Hogwarts Legacy, the canon is such that they have a spell that just turns you invisible. And it makes sense because it's a spell. It's magic, and it just works. There's another spell that, you know, in most games like this where you have to go stealth, you have the ability to kind of sense other people in the area, right? Hogwarts got that covered. There's a spell called Revelio. And you cast it and you can see where other people are, where other points of interest are. And it makes sense because it's all something that has actually been established in the lore. Mm-hmm. And they have stuff like that throughout the entire game. So as you're kind of wandering through the world, you start to notice all the different things that you would do in a normal open world RPG are all things that actually make sense because in the world, those types of elements have been built into the canon and it fits better then, oh, I have a Sheikah slate, and my Sheikah slate has got this power to be able to lift things up, to move things, to make things magnetized, to freeze water, stuff like that.
Right.
Hogwarts has already got that built into their story, into their world. So when you're learning these spells by going to the classes and then progressing the story, it all makes sense because you're just doing things that you've learned in class. And it's not like, oh, I just happened to stumble upon a thing that gave me a bunch of power, and now I have to work out how that power works, and I'll go through a little tutorial. It's like, you don't have to do that. You learn the spell from other people. And then once you've learned that spell, you just go out into the world and start applying it to the different areas. And then you start noticing that kind of like, oh, this little area here's locked, or this little area needs to have something done to it that's tied to some sort of ancient magic and stuff. And you start to uncover some of these puzzles and things. And I really love that aspect of the world. Let me know if I'm going on too long about this.
I'm enjoying hearing you talk. Very thorough. This is good. Keep it coming, please. Because I've yet to start it. I was finishing other games. So this is good for me. Keep it coming. Because you're making me excited as a non-Harry Potter fan. I'm like, ooh, I'm in on this.
I want to talk about the castle real quick, because Hogwarts Castle is at its base something that reminds me a lot of what Cyberpunk 2077 did with Night City. Night City is like a living, breathing place. It's a character more than the actual characters in a lot of the story. Hogwarts is like that. Hogwarts has each house has their own common room, and that common room is available to only only to the people that are of that house. So I've wandered around trying to find the different houses for each of the different school houses. So like Hufflepuff, Slytherin, Gryffindor. I can't get into them. And that tracks, because I shouldn't be able to get into them. They're only for those characters, but I can play through the game at a different time, choose a different house, and be able to get to that common room. But for the time being, I will always be able to go into the Ravenclaw one. The different kind of areas of the castle are all themed in a slightly different way. They've all got different kind of colors, motifs, music. Even there's portraits that play music, or magical instruments that play classical music and stuff. And you can start to kind of remember where places are based on how it looks and how it sounds in those areas. And it's all tied together. They've never done a thing where, like, there is the loading screen thing that happens when you open a door, but that typically happens when you go from indoors to outdoors. Like if you're crossing over a bridge from one part of the castle to the other, which makes sense. But I think that because this game is built for last gen, they had to put in loads somewhere, and that the loads are not like you squeezing through a little corridor. It's you opening a door. And that makes more sense to me. I would much rather wait while opening a door, or it actually slows you down like as you're approaching the door. So if you're running full sprint and it needs to load, it'll actually bring you to a walk and then get to the door, and then it will open up, and then you will continue to walk, and then you can start sprinting again. And
that sounds like God of War, the way they handled that, the way Gears of War handled it as well. Like it loads, but you're not stuck.
Yeah. And I like that. The whole castle has all of these little kind of puzzles that you have to work out, whether it be like a painting that you have to find a place at to bring a moth to, or something like that, or there's an arithmetic puzzle on a door that you have to work out to be able to unlock it, or you just need a spell that is gated to the story called a Lohomora, where you can unlock like common doors or common locks that all give you gear. And the gear in the game is not really too important. It gives you stats, and you get a lot of it as you're kind of playing through. So the quality doesn't really like have much of a concern. Like you'll get legendary stuff, you'll get common stuff, but the common stuff will be higher level than the legendary stuff that you got at the time. But you kind of push through a lot of it. But the castle itself has all of these little puzzles and eccentricities that are just so well thought out. They really put a lot of care into rebuilding a lot of the set pieces that were used in the film. So it's a 1-to-1 for me. And you definitely see that as a fan, you can see where they've put in the time and effort to really kind of let fans feel like they're in school. And when you're building your character, you can make it look however you want. You have a first name and a last name that you get to choose. You can choose your pronouns. You can choose your voice. And they've done such a good job to try and recreate the opportunity for players to actually be themselves in the game, or create a completely different character that is unique to that playthrough. Like I know someone is going to be playing through it as themselves the first time, but then they're going to create a different character who's going to be their version of Merlin, and they want to try and create it to push through like what Merlin would do going through Hogwarts, even though Merlin is technically a character in the game that you hear about. And as you're kind of going through the world, you start to realize like just how much is tied to spending time at the castle, but also roaming around in all the different little towns. And all the little towns are so beautifully done. They really are. And there's little nooks and crannies that you can find in there as well too. The main issues that I've had with the game so far come down to technical things. Facial animation isn't quite spot on. It feels a little off. But I attribute that to the fact that that's just, you know, where they were at with their ability to do facial animation. Doesn't seem like it's full mocap like God of War level. Mm-hmm. Lighting has definitely been an issue. They've got some weird funky things that they've had with lighting where it'll flicker or stutter. And I've been playing on the high frame rate mode, which is allows you to play at 120. But I've definitely seen dips into like the hundreds and stuff. So it's not a solid locked 120. And I think the 60 is definitely much better performance. But I kind of like having that headway, being that I've been playing on the really nice TV. Mm-hmm. And all of that really does fall to the wayside, because when you're playing in this world, you have so much fun kind of going around, getting into little combat spats, having missions that kind of take you through different parts of the castle or different parts of the world, and you have to help people out. And you start to kind of see like where you can actually take your character. Can you be a jerk? Yes, you can 100% be a bad person like in Mass Effect. You can be 100% a good person like in Mass Effect. Like they've really given you the opportunity to be a good person or a bad person. And because of that, they've opened up both sides of the magic system, where most of what you're going to be learning is from teachers and from students. So it's all going to be very positive stuff. But there's also spells that you probably shouldn't be learning that are more dangerous or considered the dark arts. And you can play around with those. And if you venture into like the dark forest, you can find places to actually go and do like battle arenas where you're given waves of enemies that you have to test yourself against. And it gets increasingly more difficult the more you do. But to do that, they give you the ability to use all of the dark spells. So you can use Avada Kedavra or the Cruciatus Curse or any of those, and start to kind of get an idea like, okay, this is power. Like this is fun, but it's also really bad. And how does my character play around with that? Like, how do I deal with that as a person playing this game? Like, do I want to have that kind of power? So I started to kind of like, after I've gone through like one of those arenas, I've started to put some talent points, which unlock pretty late into the game. I think it was like into my 10th hour before I unlocked the talent system.
10 hours. Wow.
Yeah, 10 hours. But it didn't feel like I was missing that, because they give you all the spells, they give you all the abilities pretty quickly. And you can feel very competent and confident as you're kind of going around doing that. So when you get to the actual talent system, you notice that the talents are kind of like enhanced versions of the talents. It's like, oh, you can still do the same thing that you're doing, but now that you've kind of spent time mastering this spell, you've spent time with it, we're going to give you a little bit extra that's going to make it just be, it's kind of like the difference between looking at someone who's been making costumes for like 1 year versus someone who's been making costumes for 5 years. Like you're going to see the difference in the quality, but both are still making costumes, kind of a thing. And it's really interesting that they did that. The last thing I wanted to touch on is the cosmetics, because I think Hogwarts and living in that world, you want to look however you can, and they give you a ton of cosmetics to do. And I can't even justify going into like the other different parts of the game that I'm just barely unlocking after 17 hours. But the cosmetics, they nailed. You get gear on a regular basis. You're constantly switching out items. It doesn't really matter what the quality is, because as long as the power level pushes you up, you're going to wear it. But once you unlock an item, once you get an item, it goes into your cosmetics, and you can go in and apply your cosmetics within seconds of getting a new piece of gear. There's nothing you have to worry about. It's just a click of 2 buttons and you're done. That helps me feel like I am playing with the best gear I can without necessarily having to care about what it looks like, because I'll always be able to change it. And I think that was something that really kind of irked me when I was playing through Cyberpunk 2077, is that if I wanted to wear the best gear, I had to look like a freaking clown. And I hated that. But this is, they understood the assignment when it came to cosmetics. But overall, Hogwarts Legacy has been an amazing experience. And I recognize that there's a lot of stuff that's going on behind the scenes, but as a game, they've done an exceptional job of creating a game that I would agree is up there in an 8 to 9 range for like a 10-point scale.
Are you expecting this to be among your Game of the Year games?
That's really tough to say, because a lot of it hinges on how the end game is, and if they're able to continue keeping me interested in the story. Because right now I really love the story, but I haven't barely scratched the surface of the actual issue that's been going on with it. It's just purely been like, there's bad guys that are after you. You need to figure out what's going on with all of the ancient magic that is kind of like special to your character. And I've yet to actually see like where the main story climax is going to be, and then what the resolution is, because we've got a lot of really good games coming out this year. I fully anticipate there being some fantastic games later in this year. This is only February, but this is definitely going to be in top 5 for me. But I again, I'm very biased. I have 2 wands next to me within arm's reach.
Cool. That's incredible to hear. Like you, and we've got some questions for you. I have questions for you. Here's this. Keep this answer short.
Okay.
If I ask you as a non-Harry Potter fan if I'm going to enjoy this game, am I?
Yes. I think you don't have to have an understanding of Harry Potter at all to be able to enjoy this game, because the mechanics and the play style are all very similar to games that we've played in the past. There's nothing too revolutionary. It's just a very good spin on what I think a lot of people come to expect with open world games.
Excellent. Okay, so that's good to know. And then you have several listener questions that we need you to answer as well. This one comes from new Patreon member who we forgot to shout out at the top of the show. That is completely my bad. Xbox Mike 29. Thank you for your support over on Patreon, dude. I appreciate you.
Love you, brother.
Logan, he says, absolutely loving Hogwarts, and it might be one of my favorite games in the last few years. By the way, he spelled favorite wrong with a U. Ugh.
Oh,
Brits.
weird. Oh, gross.
Brits, you know?
Oh.
He says, the only thing that I'd like to see added to the game is a switch to turn off some of the repetitive dialogue, especially from the flu travel lady. If you could add or fix anything with the game, what would it be? Thanks, guys, and keep up the amazing work. Shout out to Xbox Mike 29. You are amazing.
Mike, thank you. And yeah, actually, I think of all the things that I've run into, I think he's right. I think that's one of the biggest issues that I've run into, is hearing the same dialogue, especially from the fast travel system. The fast travel system in Hogwarts is called the flu system. It's the flu powder that you use to kind of throw on fire, and it allows you to teleport to different areas, which, by the way, in the game is completely free. It's not like you have to have a certain currency or something to be able to do. Once you run by one of these little flu network things, it automatically opens up the fast travel functionality. I find myself enjoying running from place to place or flying from place to place on a broom way more. But yeah, every time you run by one, they say the same thing, and or not like one of 5 different things. And if I had the ability to switch that off, I think my ambient kind of experience would be a lot better, because it wouldn't just be constantly repetitive. But I do think that really I've noticed some of the weird tropes with like open world games, like Cyberpunk is subject to this as well too. A lot of games where you'll see characters kind of do the same walk loop through areas. And if you're just running by, you don't really think about it. But if you just stand there and watch them, like you can see the AI and where the pathing is, and they're just going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Little things like that, where it's like, okay, this is definitely like They haven't done anything new or different with how games are built, like in this case.
Okay, excellent. Good to know. And I'm excited to try the flying. Like that's something I'm excited to try
It's so
because
good. They did
I
a
love
really nice
flying in
job with
games.
that.
That's
Yeah,
so okay.
I think if you took the flying system from this game and you applied it to a Superman game, you'd have a really nice Superman game. I
As I
really
wear
do
my
believe that.
Superman shirt and drink from my Superman cup and play all my Superman games that have never come out.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job. If and they explain it well because you're just barely learning how to fly in this. So when you get in, if you feel kind of weird, like you're kind of getting used to the way the controls are and stuff, it makes sense because you're just barely learning it. You're a little bit of a natural, but you're still trying to figure out like how to do everything. So I think they did a good job. But I do actually think that it would translate well to a Superman game.
Oh God, you're killing me. Well, having played as Iron Man and some of the flyers in Avengers, and then having played Anthem and even the Superman Returns Xbox 360 game, they did flying pretty well.
They
I feel
did,
like
yeah.
that's getting better, but so it goes. So it goes. Well, okay. So good question and answer there. This next one comes from a Patreon member, Lord James Suddy. He was adamant that I include the Lord in there. He says, Hogwarts is gorgeous. What are you both most looking forward to in the game? Have you come across anything that makes you pause and look around more? I find myself exploring more than actually following the story. I want to explore every nook and cranny of this world. Also, how soon do you turn to a guide when getting into a new game? I'll address this one real quick.
Yeah.
Suddy, they sent me a code. I have not booted it up. We had a really busy week of XEP stuff, and then my gaming time was dedicated to finishing up Dead Space so that I could start Hogwarts or some of the newer games that are coming out. So I've not gotten to it yet. That's why Logan is waxing poetic about it. But yeah, Logan, do you find yourself following the story or just kind of venturing off in Hogwarts?
I definitely do both. When there's story moments that feel riveting, then I'm like, okay, I want to follow this through for a little bit. But then I'm like, okay, I got to hold off. I just unlocked like flying, so now I want to fly around and see what I can find and go explore, open up the world a little bit more. Hogsmeade got me stuck for a long time because it's a pretty decently sized little town, little village, but the care and detail to like some of the houses that are built into the wall of a or like a berm where it's like in the actual hill, just like the little things that they do, the attention to detail. Not everything is like crystal clear or really clean. Like it looks like it's a lived in village. And I just really loved the atmosphere of that village. So going to Hogsmeade was really fun. I had such a good time. I was just staring at different areas around there. When it comes to guides, I don't really turn to guides too often. I think the only time I really go into them is when I'm specifically working on like a collectible system. So if I need to find something that is kind of strewn about in the world and I'm not sure where it is, or I've already kind of gone over that area pretty quickly and not seen it, I'll usually open up a guide to try and see like where those little hidden things are, just so I can kind of check them off and move on to the next area.
And I would say very case by case for me, whether I use a guide or not. Very case by case. It really just depends. But good questions there, Lord James Suddy. You are amazing, sir. Logan, one of the things, I mean, a lot of controversy around Hogwarts Legacy, not something I care to spend too much time on, but seriously, it did fantastic reviews over here on OpenCritic, Metacritic. It passed 500,000 concurrent players on Steam alone, passed the all-time peak multiplayer count for Apex Legends and Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, going over 500,000. I think it was 525,000 roughly. Pretty darn impressive. Safe to say that a lot of people are enjoying this game, and a lot of people had questions about whether or not it was okay to enjoy this game. I feel like you've done a good job of explaining why you're comfortable enjoying the game, and I would say I fully support and agree with quite a bit of what you said. I think games are made by more than one person, and sometimes you support people you don't like in order to support those that make it. Plus, I will note that I am sure many of the worlds I love to inhabit, from DC Comics to Star Wars to Lord of the Rings or any other giant franchise, or any small indie game have been made by people that are less than stellar on some level, but the majority are fantastic. And I think it's important to take joy in things that we can take joy in. And if somebody's wanting to abstain from something, don't go after them. That's their choice as well. So that tends to be my approach to a lot of this. But I'm really glad to see that the controversy is not stopping people from enjoying things. That made me happy.
Yeah, I feel and support all of the folks that are affected by the rhetoric that is brought in by J.K. Rowling. It's a blow to the fandom to hear that love is not universal for everyone and that they can't just love everyone. I really hope that would have been the case. I remember when there were accusations coming out about Stan Lee, it really kind of made a lot of us start to kind of be like, is Stan Lee a good human being? Mm-hmm. And we always hope that they are. We always hope that the people that create these worlds that bring us joy are. And it's not always the case. And we have to reconcile that, and we have to decide where do our ethics lie. So if you can support the trans community, I would urge you to do so, because they are definitely one of the minorities that deserve the support. And not to say that others don't deserve it more, because I do think Luke, you can testify this. This is Black History Month. You were out doing BLM walks in support a couple of years back in June.
Yep.
And everyone needs as much love and help as possible, especially from people who are trying to harm others with words or with money and whatever. So I support those out there that decide that they don't want to partake in this. The wizarding world helped me when I was living in Alaska and I was alone and I had a really dark moment of my life. And because of being able to escape into that world, it helped me push through a time where I was not sure if I would even be around to talk about it. So because of that, I will always be able to take whatever I gained and learned from this fandom, mm-hmm. and try to be positive and promote love from it, mm-hmm. regardless of how shitty the creator ended up being.
Yeah. So I think it's very well said. I think a lot of us have stories like that. Gaming has a good way of reaching into our lives and pulling us up out of dark places. Oddly enough, it was Gears of War that did that for me. I can't say it's romantic story. As Hogwarts, but it did that for me. So
yeah, Gears is another series that really does kind of show like brotherhood and love, and taking care of each other and pushing through as much adversity as possible when all hope seems lost.
Fully agree, man. Fully agree. Well, nonetheless, let us know, guys, if you are enjoying Hogwarts. Sounds like Suddy is, and I'd love to know if more people are as well. I remember Clint Coombs, one of our good buddies, was on the fence about checking it out, as I thought he was. So I'm hoping he's getting a chance to check it out as well. But I would like to kind of shift gears a little bit, because there is a game coming to Game Pass later this month. I believe it's this month. Check behind me if you don't mind. Atomic Heart. I think that's the 21st of February. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So Atomic Heart, everything's fast right now. That's why I was like, I got to finish Dead Space before I start the next thing. Because also Wo Long is on the way. Wanted Dead is a game I really hope people check out. Coming out on Valentine's Day. That's next week. Yep. Interviewed the creator of that one. He has a really fascinating story. Side note, Wanted Dead, made by the same people that make Ninja Gaiden and Dead or Alive, including all the way back to Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball. So I was like, oh
my God.
It was wild.
That was like one of the best volleyball games I'd ever played.
Legitimately, it was a very good volleyball game.
It's a really good volleyball game.
But you can't tell anybody that without them,
immediately assuming. Right. That's fine. You know what? I was young. I was single. I wanted the sexy ladies on my screen, but I also wanted to listen to Offspring while I was playing volleyball too. So you know what? Like, judge me if you want. Yes, I was.
But yeah, Wanted Dead, a game in that kind of genre as well. Interview on XCP coming up, actually, which is pretty cool. But yeah, a lot of games coming out. But Atomic Heart is one that I really feel like it's just another kick in the nuts for Xbox. Think back, Stalker 2 was supposed to come out exclusively. War in Ukraine, awful situation. Obviously, nobody can get upset about that. High on Life comes out to rave reviews, Game Pass day and date as well. Justin Roiland apparently sucks and is an awful person. Side note, sounds like he's not actually been involved in Rick and Morty since like the earliest days, which, you know, crazy. He's like, should you boycott Rick and Morty and High on Life? Same thing, case by case, go in, do your research, decide what's best for you morally and ethically. But another kick in the nuts to Xbox marketing. I'm staying focused on that aspect of it for the moment. Then Atomic Heart is this game that a lot of people were really looking forward to. It had a lot of really big hype for a good bit. Come to find out, it might be made by Russians, which inherently not a bad thing to be made by anyone from a country based on what their government is doing. There are plenty of things America has done in throughout history and perhaps ongoing that would vilify Americans in a lot of people's eyes. But just a lot of strange things happening around Munfish that I think have been magnified. And so I went in and did some research as well, Logan. And it sounds like the Russian government is potentially involved in funding the game. Again, not unlike Singapore funding Skull and Bones, not unlike, I forget, Rhode Island funding Kingdoms of Amalur. Lots of times countries or states will fund production for entertainment.
I think Canada has like a full arts program through their government that support a lot of the television that gets created. So not uncommon.
Yeah, not uncommon at all. However, apprehensions come about, of course, given the nature of what Atomic Heart is about. The game's concept is a KGB agent in a world where Russia developed a game-changing polymer technology and won World War II. So you've got alternate history, potentially made by Russians or funded by the Russian government, where the Russians won. Fine, cool, alternate histories happen all the time. Munfish released a statement, however, saying that they were a global team focused on creating Atomic Heart, and they reiterated this in subsequent tweets where they condemned violence, but never specifically mentioned that the war in Ukraine was the violence they were talking about. Interesting. And then there was a line in one of their privacy policies that said Munfish collects user data and may provide it to the Russian state authorities. Certainly alarm bells would go off on that one. They came out and told Games Radar that their game and website do not collect information or data. The website's privacy statement is outdated and wrong and should have been removed years ago. We had to shut down the shop to assure fans of the integrity of our studio and products. We apologize for confusion on this matter, said Munfish. Pretty wild to think, all things considered. However, they do have a pretty diverse team working on Atomic Heart based on their website. Poland, Ukraine, Austria, Georgia, Israel, Armenia, United Arab Emirates, Serbia, and Cyprus all mentioned there. The question of whether or not Atomic Heart has true connections to the Russian government still unclear at this point. The question that I think a lot of people are asking is, should you be playing Atomic Heart knowing these things? And I think it's a fair question to ask if you have strong feelings on any of these matters. But I would encourage everyone to do the research. To my way of thinking, kind of goes back to a way of what we talked about with some of those bigger franchises and who makes them and how they're made. Vilifying a group of people based on one person's actions, I don't think is a good thing to do. Everything should be case by case and well considered by the purchaser, customer, in this case, us. I do think it's another kick in the nuts for Xbox's marketing and for Game Pass's marketing, because they went out, found these big games, and this is kind of another thing that happens to it. I'm going to check out Atomic Heart because it's coming to Game Pass, and I like good games, and I think we should celebrate good games. And I know that if people vilified me for being American based on America's actions, I'd feel pretty distraught, because a lot of those things I had nothing to do with, and I don't know the people involved. But it's a complex issue, but I saw a lot of rhetoric being said that wasn't true or was inflammatory, and I wanted to just kind of break down the things that we know versus the things we don't actually know, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think you're right. And it's a shame that not everyone has the time to be able to dive into these issues, which I think is what's great about having podcasts like yours that allow us to kind of, take some time to talk about this, to take some time to kind of break it down, because at the end of the day, I think a lot of gamers just want to play games. And you see it all the time. People talk about how they don't want to see politics in their games. They don't want to see politics talked about with games. And inherently, that's always going to be flawed as an argument, because it doesn't matter what game it is. There's always going to be some level of politics, not necessarily like governmental politics, but politics in general, tied to these. And this is one of those situations where Microsoft has vouched for Munfish. And I think a company as big as Microsoft would have people being able to do the due diligence to see if this is a conflict of interest, for them to be able to offer Munfish the opportunity to be on Game Pass. So if Microsoft is saying that they're okay, and they haven't come out and explicitly said that, we understand that the views of this studio do not reflect the studios or the publishers' views, then they support it. And looking at the evidence, it looks like Munfish has said as much as they can without putting themselves at risk, being that they're also going to be having people that are based in Russia. And from what we've heard, speculatively, I don't have any evidence to be able to point at and say, like, this is exactly what's happening. I would not want to be in Russia and jeopardize my safety by standing out against a government that I may not necessarily agree with. There's definitely things where I would probably, during a certain period of time of our government's history in the last 4 years, I probably wouldn't have wanted to go out and started, saying stuff against a certain person either. And because of that, I can definitely empathize with them. But they've said enough to say that they want to support people who are in need, that they are condemning violence, and they're not saying specifically what. But I think if you condemn violence, then it's pretty clear. I think people need to be educated and let them make the adult choice. All of us, we're all adults here. We can make our own choices every day. We can decide what we want to support, how ethically we feel about it. But at the end of the day, this is a game. This is intended to be something that we are pulling ourselves out of our daily lives to experience and to see what an artist or a group of artists decided to tell with this story. We can judge it separately or with the context. I think both are valid. And I think it's good to let people know ahead of time kind of what those biases are if we're going to be speaking to what our feelings on the matter are, which is exactly why I let everyone know I'm very biased when it comes to Hogwarts.
Sure. Absolutely. And I think, and I had said something over in like the YouTube channel, like in one of the shorts, like if you're taking the time to attack people, you're not helping, you're not likely to sway anyone's mindset, and nobody deserves to be attacked for either covering the game or enjoying the game, playing the game. Entertainment is messy. In a world where we tweet from iPhones, where we use screens made with Gorilla Glass, where we have microchips that are made in different parts of the world is messy, and glass houses are easily seen through. So pick and choose what's right for your personal morality and ethics, and do your best to let others do the same. But educate yourself, I think, is the important thing on that front. And of course, we say that from two very privileged positions, knowing full well.
100%.
Got to acknowledge that as well.
Very lucky to be born in the time and place that I am. I try to do whatever I can to support those that are not born in my position.
Sure. Fully agree. Well, nonetheless, I am looking forward to trying Atomic Heart. I don't know if it's my kind of game, start to finish, but I am looking forward to trying it.
It looks cool.
It does look cool, but it is definitely another kick to Xbox where I feel like they would be marketing hard. These past few weeks, they would have gone from High on Life to Age of Empires to Wo Long and Atomic Heart as well. Hi-Fi Rush, yeah, just ding, ding, ding. They could have had really good 4 months of just hit, and it's like, no, I can't talk about it. That's
Luke, do you think that some of all of the good press that Microsoft would be having right now with the games that they've been releasing is mired by the acquisition rhetoric that's been going on between the CMA and the American authorities? I can't remember who it is right now.
FTC.
Thank you.
100%. Yes. I'm exhausted and I don't care about Activision Blizzard anyway. Like, I'm just over it. It's interesting, but it's not like it's interesting to a point, right? Like, I ultimately care about
Yeah.
playing games, and there's nothing in the Activision's catalog that I'm like exclusive. It needs to be like, no, none of that needs to be. And it's just, it feels like this is all from an outside looking in. Maybe Microsoft prepared for this and knew through and through, but it feels like it's all just everybody's lining up to get in the way of it for strange reasons that don't quite add up, while PlayStation's crushing it in number one spots left and right. So it's very strange to me, but I'm quite over it. I'll tell you that. I don't think Xbox needs Activision Blizzard to be successful, and I don't think there's anything wrong with being in the number 2 spot when you're making money. And
Yeah.
so, I'm a little tired of it, but yeah, absolutely, it's been mired by that. Like, because every time people want to talk about Xbox, this cloud kind of hangs nearby and is very easy to cast a shadow if the light changes. So it's kind of exhausting and annoying, and I don't truly care. I mean, I love Call of Duty. Here's an interesting kind of anecdote connection. I abstained from Call of Duty last year. Easy to do because I wasn't very interested in Vanguard, but there was a lot of crunch culture discussion and a lot of mistreatment happening at Activision that we were hearing about. And I was like, easy decision, not overly interested. I'm going to sit out on Vanguard.
Yeah.
And I did.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, cool.
I'm hoping the acquisition is able to get rid of Bobby Kotick, because that's where I feel like a lot of the issues, because Bobby Kotick. And I think that it's sorry. I know we're trying to keep it clean here, folks, but really Bobby Kotick. I really do think that those studios will be in a safer place if the acquisition goes through. And I honestly, I don't care if any of those games become exclusive. I hope that they stay multi-platform just so that everyone gets to enjoy them. Mm-hmm. Let Microsoft take the money from owning them, and just keep them multi-plat. That works for me. It'll bolster Game Pass if anything. And I just think that the way that Microsoft tries to run their companies, their studios, is with the intent of trying to be as fair and safe to those studios and the employees at them as possible. And I think I care more about that than I do necessarily the IP, because I think the IP would stand regardless of who's publishing it.
Mm-hmm. Agree. But yeah, that's all. Those are all the true thoughts I have on Activision Blizzard in general.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to when it's all said and done, regardless, because at least then we'll be able to kind of see like where things go from there. I want to see Xbox celebrate the studios that they have and not be constantly thinking about like what's going to happen with the next acquisition, because I'm afraid that the news cycle is so hungry for like topics to kind of like debate about. Mm-hmm. That as soon as the acquisition goes through or doesn't go through, people are going to be like, oh, what's the response from Xbox if it doesn't go through? What are they going to do now? Are they going to get vengeful? Or what's the response from Sony if it does go through? Like, what's Sony going to do now that they have to compete against that? Yeah, like, mm-hmm. I don't know.
I do not want to ever be the one that partakes in, and if I ever do, it's not intentional. The anger and aggressiveness that tends to come from the news cycle, right? Like I'm not looking for the next thing to be upset over. There's too much to enjoy. And I don't say that to be preachy, but like 100% do I mean that? Like there is too much to enjoy.
We got a lot of good games to play.
Yeah. Like
too many.
I haven't started Hogwarts because I just finished the Dead Space remake after playing Callisto and Hi-Fi Rush and a great indie game that I really enjoy. You know what I mean? Like, mm-hmm. I'm swimming in the best of gamings right now.
Yeah.
And like, why wouldn't I want to celebrate that? I don't need things to be upset over. I'm too old. I mean, I'm 37, but I feel like I've learned enough to say like, live and let live, bro. Enjoy yourself. Be angry if you need to be angry. I'm not there for that.
Yeah.
So it goes. Logan, I have been media dark and purposely media dark on Jedi Survivor. I've already pre-ordered my $300 edition of that game.
I hate you for having that. Oh my God, I want that.
I used my birthday money when it was first announced that you could do that. That was my birthday money. You know what I mean? I threw that into the account. Boom, done. So I pre-ordered that one. I know after 1K'ing Fallen Order, I know that I'm excited for Cal Kestis's journey. No matter what, I feel like just like you with Hogwarts, I was like, I'm predisposed to loving this game and I'm in. So I'm actually staying media dark on it. I did the same thing with Halo. There are a couple, like every now and again, it's like I don't need or want to see more. I'm just excited to play and I want it to be a good experience. So I didn't actually watch this gameplay, but all intents and purposes for what I'm seeing is that people are excited by it and stoked.
Yeah, oh man, I was drooling over the footage when it came out, and I was watching it back last night to build up some notes. I won't dive into everything that I wrote in there, just because I figured like I'll let people kind of judge for themselves, and I don't want to expose too much. But I am ready for Cal Kestis' story to move forward. I absolutely loved Fallen Order. It was such a welcome reprieve from the Star Wars games that we've been getting, that to have him in a sequel and be able to get back with BD and stuff and see like what are they going to do now that they know that the first one was a success. How is this one going to up the ante and what can they do? And I think that they have some really nice tricks that they're going to bring to it. I think that they've learned a lot from what their first iteration was. And I think they've definitely gone to the trouble of having like the environments still look really fantastic. Everything still looks really, really good. But I think the combat is being upped a notch. I think they've learned a lot from their first one. And I think they're going to have a lot of fun with this. I think that they look like they know what what were some of the pain points from the first game, which was kind of like you're always fighting the same type of enemies. It's always stormtroopers in this case. In the new one,
the map was atrocious.
The map was terrible. Having to run everywhere, regardless, and having to figure out like how you get to certain areas. I think they've taken a lot of lessons from those, and it looks like they've done a really good job of addressing them. You get mounts. The map looks a lot better. They've got more diverse enemies now. There's little pockets of places where you have to go where you're going to be fighting against mercenaries or rogue bandits and stuff. But they have like reprogrammed droids from the Clone Wars that are going to be mixed in now. So you're going to be fighting a much more diverse enemies. What we saw was all kind of pre-release. So I have concerns like frame rate. There's some walk animations and some death animations that seem a little stiff, but I will wait until we actually get to see the game at launch before I think that this game is in trouble. And I don't think that there's ever going to be an opportunity for this game to fail, because I think they've done a really good job with the first one. And this looks like it's just a continuation of that with refinements that needed to be put in, where I don't think that they had the time to do that with the first one, because it definitely felt like the first one came out pretty hot. And this one seems like they've had time to really kind of like work on those.
I hope so, man. I hope so. Like I'm excited to go on that journey. In general, I'm excited for the fixes they've done. Cal Kestis is the coolest character. I wonder if we don't see him in Mando season 3.
Oh God, I hope
that'd be so cool, because like it really feels like that's a character ripe for the live action verse as well. And Star Wars has been doing a good job in the Dave Filoni era where that stuff started to happen. Dano wrote in, he said, what games that you remember have been a pleasant surprise or just snuck up on you without realizing it? Oddly enough, as a diehard Star Wars fan, I was really hesitant on Fallen Order because all I kept hearing was Dark Souls style combat. And that game snuck up on me because I was very timid to start. And it was a small learning curve, but it opened my eyes to like a be patient and parry kind of gameplay style, and I really enjoyed it. It did a great job at teaching me that genre in a small way, which opened my mind to you can choose this combat style, Dark Souls style, in Darksiders 3, and those two experiences helped me play Elden Ring, right? Like it was a kind of a neat progression, but Fallen Order did sneak up on me in a way that I wasn't expecting it to. Survivor's not going to sneak up on me because of that,
Yeah, 100%. And I think you're right. Like, I think it being a Star Wars game and having a lightsaber really did do a lot to usher in a lot of people who are not typically comfortable with that Dark Souls kind of combat style. I definitely am not. I'm not the type to be patient about that. I am very much like I'm Link. I've got a couple fairies in a bottle in my pocket, so I'm not worried about it. I'm just going to go in and start hacking and slashing. If I die, I got a fairy in a bottle that's going to res me and stuff. With Jedi Fallen Order, I had to learn. I had to figure it out. I was like, you have to parry. There are certain things you just have to dodge. So when I went through that, I was legitimately surprised at how beautiful the world was, how good it felt. And they released an accessibility patch about 6 months after launch that allowed you to have like auto clamber and auto climb, like when you jump on stuff. Completely changed the game for me. Allowed me to really kind of just enjoy the game as opposed to constantly fighting with the controls. And because of that, I really was taken back by just how good of a story that was, especially the ending. Holy cow. Not going to ruin it for anyone, but if you haven't played the first one and you like Star Wars, this is one that they have plenty of difficulty levels. If you're not comfortable with Souls-likes, they have different ways to kind of increase the parry time to make it easier for you. 100% worth it. Please go play that. I think it's even on Game Pass through EA Play.
Oh yeah, actually it is. You're right. And I like that you mentioned accessibility controls, because I often go in whatever game I'm playing to the accessibility menu and I turn off anything related to QTE or button mashing.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy either of those things. They're never fun for me. Rhythm games, even, like, I don't like rhythm games because I'm just not, that's not my style. And QTEs are sometimes like that. I will turn those off in a heartbeat. And I was really happy to hear that Resident Evil 4 Remake doesn't have QTEs in the same way that the original did. So nice. I'm super, super stoked there. And I was thinking, so I want to talk about Dead Space Remake. I just finished that up this morning prior to us recording, and I'm gonna try Deliver Us Mars as well. That's next on my list along with Hogwarts.
I have some thoughts about that.
About Deliver Us Mars?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I want to hear about Dead Space though, and Callisto Protocol, because you played through both.
I did, and let's talk Deliver Us Mars on next week's episode. So listeners, Deliver Us Mars next week. Hogwarts and Dead Space for this week. So, really, really enjoyed my time with Dead Space. Really enjoyed it, and it reminded me, especially after coming off Callisto, that I don't like horror movies, and I don't like jump scare games like some of the cheap ones you can get. But I really enjoy horror style games. Like I love Resident Evil 7 included, which is a scary game. But neither Dead Space. Really? Yeah, it's scary. I don't blame you. But you could play any of the other Resident Evils except for 7 and be fine. Like truly, they're third-person action games or first-person action games, depending on which one. But I really enjoy horror games, and having played Callisto Protocol, followed almost immediately by Dead Space Remake, I just like third-person action horror games. The vibe is good. With Dead Space Remake, that is just an immaculate remake, I should say, remake. And everything is stunningly gorgeous. There's some bugs here and there with the camera, but like when you get a clean playthrough, like everything's gorgeous. All the weapons feel fantastic. They have, I don't remember this being a problem when I first played Dead Space, but in some comparison thoughts, I heard people talking about, like, they changed how you get the weapons. Like they're far more easier to get weapons. You don't have to like buy them. You can just unlock them and they're just there for you, which is really cool. But I wanted to, it was too easy. I was on medium. It was too easy. And so rather than up the difficulty, what I did was I went in and turned down the brightness. I was on normal brightness. I turned it down to where really hard to see everything, except if you're aiming, which changed it to be like a flashlight mode almost, except for like lit up panels and whatnot, which was, that to me changed the experience tenfold. The environment suddenly became more lived in. It felt more spooky, but in a fun way, not in like a jump scare way. No jump scare scared me. In fact, I wasn't scared once playing Dead Space, but I had more fun. It felt more tactical, more thought-based. This game is stunning. It's beautiful. It feels good to play. The level design remains fantastic. The writing is better because Isaac Clarke now speaks, and he doesn't speak in a way that's like overly dorky or anything. If I remember right, he was a silent protagonist. I might be misremembering, but I don't think
Oh
I am.
yeah, he was. I was
Yep.
going to ask you, like, how do you feel about silent protagonists in a game where you're playing as the protagonist?
It depends greatly. Am I
Mm.
seeing this person's face? If so, I want to hear their voice. If it's a Master Chief style thing, where you don't see their face, I'm a little bit more open to it here and there. But that is again case by case anecdotal because Link, I mean that boy doesn't talk. You know, like that's all
Yeah,
you get out of him, and it's weird. Um, Silent protagonists don't bother me, but I do get annoyed if the silent protagonist has a lot to say and I'm scrolling text. That's dumb. That's
interesting.
dumb.
Okay.
So there's kind of a caveat to that, but really enjoyed a lot of the things they did to make this game more playable. A lot of people talk about the asteroid section. Was a real chore in the original game. Here it's an absolute joy. What they did instead, like you
Ooh,
aim with your plasma cutter and you hit A, and the cannons lock onto where you're aiming. Super easy. You're going out
nice.
into the void and like repairing things while it's all happening. Such a good time. I was playing on a sound bar in the dark, and Ains and Joe were like, absolutely not. Put on your headphones because I don't like wearing headphones if I don't have to.
Hmm.
Put on your headphones; it'll just change your experience. I did, and they were right. It made it that much more enjoyable. So between the audio design, turning the brightness down, I had a blast. The weapons were fantastic. I only used 3 weapons the whole time, uh, which was cool. And I'm ready to go in for New Game Plus. And that's kind of the annoying thing is like I want to start New Game Plus instead of starting these other games.
Yeah.
I just had that much fun.
I gotta ask about the fleshy system because that seemed like such a marketing point. Did you notice like being able to shoot off limbs or like when you're getting down to the bone on some of the creatures and stuff?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The dismemberment system was fantastic. Better than I remember it being. And
Mm.
sometimes when you're playing old games, like what you remember it is not what it actually is. I
Hmm.
thoroughly feel like this was a better experience top to bottom. Dead Space isn't that old, at least not to me. Doesn't feel like it
No.
is. And of course, that was available, and you can Series X upgrades with it, or enhance with X, whatever it was. You can do a lot of stuff with the original game, and it still holds up quite well. This showed me why we need remasters of great games, regardless. And I love the dismemberment system. It's something to get used to that headshots don't mean a thing. That is something that
Mm.
I still just want to default to headshots on stuff.
It's a
But yeah,
zombie.
exactly. Yeah, but chopping off limbs, it works fantastically. Changes the way you play. There's a lot of really good enemy design. I apparently did not finish many of the side quests, although I did quite a few of them. Didn't
Hmm.
finish enough of them. I finished the game on medium, and I think I unlocked less than 400 achievement points, which was to me not good. I don't like when
Yeah.
achievements are so niche that you can't, like, if you don't get over half the achievement points by just playing the game, to me that's a flaw.
Yeah.
um
I
but
agree.
to compare it to Callisto had way better facial animations, way prettier of a game, but also a much less complex game, so that makes sense. They put a lot into the production of Callisto and making sure it looked fantastic, but there's a lot less weapon variety. It's far more linear. um Dead Space has a lot more you can do, a lot more, I guess you would say, like enemy diversity and different like elements of the monsters. But I loved both a lot. I think I enjoyed my time with Callisto more because it was a more of a streamlined linear experience where you can venture off the beaten path in Dead Space quite a bit. And for these kind of games, I like linearity. Sometimes I want an open world, like with Hogwarts. Like I want an open experience.
Yeah.
Dead Space, not as much, but I still, man, to critique either of them would be to misrepresent how much enjoyment I had. I really loved both of them, and I would recommend both of them. Um, Callisto, perhaps on sale, $40 is the right price for Callisto. $70 for that remake is fine for Dead Space.
If I recall correctly, you played Dead Space through EA Play Plus.
No, I bought Dead Space. You talking about Dead
Okay.
Space remake?
Yes.
Yeah, we did not get codes for that. This was entirely on my dime, and I
Okay.
thoroughly I bought it, pre-ordered it, bought it. Hey, quick note on that. They gave me a month of Game Pass for new members for free. If any
Oh,
listener would like
nice.
that, please DM me or email me. It's a month if you've never been on Game Pass. So they gave me that code. It's sitting there. I don't know who in my friends list does not have Game Pass, so I'm happy to give it. Yeah.
So hard to find someone that hasn't played Game Pass before.
Right. But if any listener would like it, it's a month, and I'll be happy to give it to you for sure. But yeah, I'm very happy that I spent the money on this one, Logan. They were kind enough to let me know that we didn't get codes so that I could pre-order it, which is always appreciated because
right?
Yeah, as a content creator, we give and where we get codes, we don't get codes. That's fine. We don't owed anything, but it's really appreciated on a side note when we know ahead of time because then I can pre-order and preload and get ready. Easy.
Hogwarts Legacy, a case in point. Like we didn't know, and it was at the point where I was like, I was pre-ordering when we found out, so I was like, okay,
yep. And it was too late for me to switch it to PlayStation for you, and so
which is 100% fine. Like I'm glad that you got the code because I think seeing your perspective as not a Harry Potter fan. Very important to me. I'm very curious how this plays for you, not having the nostalgia hit, because I think that it really does, like it hits two different ways. And I would love to know a critical perspective from someone who's not a fan, whose opinion I trust on that, because I think it is really very important to have both sides of that story.
Well, kind of in that same vein, like I'll have impressions for you, but I do not plan on speed running that game. I was glad to finish Dead Space, glad to finish Callisto, glad to finish a few other titles in there. I'm going to finish Deliver Us Mars. At least I anticipate finishing Deliver Us Mars because I finished Deliver Us the Moon, and I want to be able to compare them. But it looks to me like Hogwarts is a game that I want to take my time with. Yeah. It looks to me like there's a lot to do, and I want to enjoy it. And I'm hoping this gets me into Harry Potter, because I've never even seen start to finish a Harry Potter movie. Never caught my eye. I've got it over in my classroom for my students because they like it. But I am hoping this gets me in, as I've gotten into lots of things. Like, what was it? Sonic
Frontiers
got me into Sonic again. And then I went back and played all the old ones. Like I will do that. I'll go down that rabbit hole. Yeah. And so I hope that Legacy does that for me, because Legacy could be my game to take me through to Resident Evil 4, right? That could be my single player game to take me to Resident Evil 4, which would then take me to Jedi Survivor. I don't know if you do that, but like I don't like playing 3 simultaneous big games. I'll do a big single player game, some indies, and my multiplayer stuff with my buddies when they want to play. And that's kind of how I do it. I don't like having 2 or 3 big single player games.
It's kind of tough because I was in the middle of Horizon Forbidden West when Hogwarts came out, and I definitely am like comparing the two. Maybe not intentionally, but I'm definitely comparing the two as far as like open world gameplay goes right now, which is very interesting because I spent 70 hours with Horizon Zero Dawn, and then I immediately jumped into Forbidden West, and now that I'm in Hogwarts, I want to finish up Hogwarts so that I can jump into Atomic Heart when that launches and be ready for that. Because I know, honestly, the end of this February is going to be devastating for me because I've got Metroid Prime physical that's coming out, Atomic Heart that I want to jump into, PSVR 2 that I've got pre-ordered, as well as Destiny's new expansion, which I just got the collector's edition yesterday for. So I don't know how you're dying. How are you? Are you okay? Are you going to, oh my God. Listeners, if you don't know, he is now choking. He's being attacked by one of the monsters from Dead Space. I don't know how it got into his room. Luke, please. Are you going to survive?
Wrong pipe.
But yeah, I'm planning on, well, he composes himself. I'm looking forward to getting into Atomic Heart so that we can talk about it here, because it is a Game Pass game and it looks weird. It looks weird, like Dead Space looks weird to me, or not Dead Space. What was that other one? Deathloop. Deathloop looked weird to me when I saw that. It was like all faceless people and you're going in and it's a time loopy thing. And then I'm looking at Atomic Heart and it's got faceless robots and stuff. And I'm like, it just looks weird. I want to jump in and figure out like what's going on with it. But then like after that, it's like, I mean, I don't know if I'll get into RE4. I hope you do, so that I can have someone talk to me about it, because I have Resident Evil games. I love Resident Evil games. I'm really, really like having to push myself to get into those games. Especially like I would prefer watching someone play it and then play it myself to be able to experience. So I kind of know where like the jumps are and where things are coming from. But yeah, there's a lot in the next 4 months or 4 weeks. I don't know how we're going to deal with it.
I really think if you played Resident Evil 2, 3, or 8, you'd be fine.
See, I
think you'd be fine.
I played 2 and 3 when they first came out. I haven't played the remakes.
Because of the modern upgrades, you're not tanked, and so you have more mobility, and so you feel like you're playing an action game. At least that's how I interpreted it. There are spooky settings and environments, which to me is what I like, but there was very little in those Resident Evil games that I was like, I'm terrified right now. I did not anticipate it. Now 7, that is very different.
You know what it is though? It's the ammo. It's like the low amount of ammo that you get that drives my anxiety. It's less about the jump scares and more just like my God, how am I going to deal with this? I'm so going to die.
That makes sense. You know, one thing I neglected to mention in talking about Dead Space is I played Dead Space. All I could think about was how much I love Doom 3. Did you ever play Doom 3?
Really? No, I didn't.
Doom 3 is a horror game, and it's an action horror game, just like Dead Space in a lot of ways. And a lot of that audio design, whispering voices, and like not sure what's going on.
Okay.
Yeah, Doom 3 is dope. And when that game first came out, I had a ball with it. And so I always love when people go back to Doom 3. That's a game I want a remake of.
Also on Game Pass.
Is it really? Is it Doom 3? Oh, yeah.
Pretty sure.
I guess it would be. Yes, it would be. Yeah. Sometimes I forget. That's pretty cool. But yeah, I dig it. So
crazy. Interesting. Yeah, I'd never heard about that.
As we wind down here, that's pretty much it for this week, man. We covered our listener questions partway through the show. I want to talk about real quick. I had an incredible week of interviews. I was up early, multiple days this week. Yeah, I had 3 developer interviews this week. One from Sweden, one from Switzerland, one from Germany. And those are going to be coming out over the next 3 weeks on XCP's YouTube channel for that playlist. And then, of course, on the audio feeds as well. But this week coming up, Wanted Dead, again, Ninja Gaiden and Dead or Alive developers. Really fun interview there. Followed by the SteamWorld Build and Shadow Gambit team. Shadow Gambit, that pirate adventure game that looked really cool, a lot like Sea of Thieves in many ways.
Really awesome tactics look.
Yeah. Oh gosh, it looked really good. And talking to them was really neat as well. Just hearing some of the stuff. It was fun.
Listeners, if you guys don't know, like Luke says that he had a busy week. He got 3 interviews. Cool. This man woke up, like I saw the interviews, the scheduled time. These were at 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. They were 2 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I wanted to jump in on these to talk to the devs, but 2 a.m. Logan is a little sleepy boy at 2 a.m. So I go to bed at like midnight and he's like, hey, if you want to jump in on these, you can. I'm like, brother, I'm 40. I can't be waking up in the middle of my REM sleep. I'm going to have such a hard time. So if you listen to these interviews, keep in mind, this is 5 a.m. for this man.
That's true. Well, thank you for the kind words. And I invite you so that you don't feel left out, not because I expect you to get up at 2 a.m.
No, I appreciate that. I really did want to talk to Shadow Gambit about their piratey stuff because obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a fun one. Moritz is a really cool dude. That was Moritz Wagner. He's the creative director for Shadow Gambit. And then I talked to, well, I don't need to list the names. Bottom line, keep your eye on the feeds because I would love for you guys to support it. I will say it's been interesting to watch, Logan. XCP for years was a news and interview show in one. And then it's split now into the interviews being separate. And watching on the feeds, the audience diverge, some double dip has been interesting. And it makes perfect sense. Some people just want the interview. Some people are just interested in the interview of that game, right? Other people came to hear me and now us talk, which is also interesting to watch. So watching XCP evolve has been fascinating, and things ebb and flow when you're an interview show based on the interest of the game, what people are talking about, what they want to play. And sometimes they have long tails, sometimes not. Watching the feeds kind of diverge a little bit has been really interesting to see who was interested in what and who could blame them, right? Like I blame no one for that. It was really just, I'm glad we did what we did, and I'm glad we opened up Patreon to people can help and support what they're interested in and talk to us a little bit more directly, which is really neat. I'm excited to do the Xbox wrap up, but it's been a really cool month and a half since we made these changes. So
I hope folks are enjoying this. I'm loving being able to talk with you about this. I've had a really, really good time being able to have this outlet and this opportunity. So I'm hoping other folks are really enjoying the amount of time that we're spending on just talking together as opposed to it just being a solo show.
Yeah, me too. Cause I'm much happier as well. And I was really wondering if people would want to jump in and support or see different, what they want to see the conversation. And so just seeing 13 people say, hey, I'm supporting XEP, that blew my mind. That was cool. Seeing people check out what they were interested in and have the option to do that. Really, really cool. So shout out to all of you, whether you have dropped a review on the show, whether you've clicked a like, whether you retweeted, shared on Instagram, whether you were able to make the jump into Patreon. Please never feel obligated. We're talking about it because it's new, but thank you for just listening in general. We really appreciate you guys.
Yeah, means the world.
Big time. Well, that's going to be it for us, Logan. Please let people know what they've got going on, what's happening over at Keelhauled, and where can we find you?
Oh, man. So you can find me over on Twitter as long as they allow me to tweet at CAPT_LOGUN. And this week, Keelhauled, we're going to be talking about Community Day. Today is Community Day for Sea of Thieves. They have one of these every season. Right now, there's a gold, renown, and reputation faction like grade system that's going on. So the more you tweet about hashtag Sea of Thieves Community Day, the higher that grade goes. So you get to 2.5 times the multiplier for everything that you turn in for that whole day. They've got tons of drops going on. They've got tons of content going out and nominations for people getting cosmetics for being good parts of the community. It's insane just like what's going on with all of that. So I'll be talking about all of that. I'm going to be streaming later on today with my buddy Davram, who does a Sea of Thieves podcast. We're going to be going through all the lore story and stuff like that to kind of just really enjoy it. But yeah, it's a crazy day for Sea of Thieves, but definitely keep an ear out if you have any interest in that. And if you guys have questions about Sea of Thieves, I love fielding those. So feel free to reach out to me.
There we go. And listeners, you can find me over on Twitter, Instagram, and Hive at InsipidGhost. And of course, you can follow the show on all your podcast services. If you're able to drop reviews, we'd appreciate it. And of course, over on YouTube at youtube.com/Xbox Expansion Pass. Thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic week.